So we just finished finding Maverick's working number. We ended at 40 here. This is also what I refer to as the starting working number, because as we condition and the brain becomes more cognizant of what the collar is communicating, the dog's perception or sensitivity to the collar is greater and the number can go down. Don't stress trying to keep your number low. Every dog's number is different. Maverick's size, his breed, his temperament, his age, none of those things factor in when we come in to find a dog's working number. Every dog is different. I've only ever had one dog in my career that to a degree overrode the collar and would ignore everything except 127, okay? And this was for obedience. This wasn't behavior. It's not uncommon to be that high for behavior when we're correcting things. But for obedience, could care less about anything. And I told the owner, technically the dog needs a second collar to add additional pressure, which will reduce the number from 127 to a much lower number, because we have 2 points of output. But the owner was fine with it, and the dog was a golden retriever. So people usually go, "Oh, my dog's so sweet. My dog's a golden. Like, it's all that stuff. Not going to need a lot of pressure." I'm like, the toughest case I ever had in terms of resiliency to the collar was actually a golden retriever. They're very sturdy dogs. So here we're at 40 out of 127, so 40. So in this part of the video, we're going to work on heel. And whenever we're conditioning a dog with remote collar, heel is almost always 99% of the time the first thing that we cover. Okay. The reason for this is leash pulling and leash reactivity are the two most common things that people or dog owners want to correct. So we start with heel because it's what the owner wants. But also heel is fundamentally such a beneficial command to teach your dog for so many reasons. When we get dogs that struggle with overstimulation issues, it's the again, the brain's inability to turn off. Heel helps fix that problem, because in order for a dog to heel with you, they have to focus and they have to block out the environment, which teaches them how to relax and how to turn off. And through that, indirectly, the overstimulation issues start to go away. When we deal with leash reactivity, usually it's just frustration. It doesn't always mean aggression. So a lot of times when we teach heel, like 70 to 80% of the reactivity will go away on its own. And then we have to just kind of address what we call the residual reactivity, which is the leftover stuff that the owner sees even after a couple classes on doing applying heel. Okay. So I've also had clients get injuries, physical injuries. I've had clients have their shoulders dislocated, elbows broken, fingers broken, wrists broken, hips broken, just from a dog pulling too much. Okay, so heel, very beneficial. Also, most people in the city of Chicago walk their dogs 3 times a day, 7 days a week. So that's 3 times a day, 7 days a week that you get to expose Maverick to this tool and this structure, and that's what helps get the dog over everything. So it's not uncommon in the beginning, because e-collar is a stressor, to see the dog go under stress, usually anxiety, fear, nervousness, even defensiveness. The e-collar is not making the dog anxious. The dog is already an anxious dog. E-collar is a stressor, so we're just seeing the anxiety as the response, okay? Because clients will go, oh, my, the e-collar is making my dog more anxious. I go, no, your dog's already an anxious dog. We're just putting your dog under stress. But as we work the dog through stress and the dog understands how everything works, that we build their confidence, and a lot of that stuff starts to go away. It's very rare that we get a dog that doesn't move past that, and that's usually because of the genetic makeup of the dog. They just happen to be genetically screwed, and they're just super anxious and stuff, but they're much better because typically they have poor stress responses, and by going to the training, we can teach them healthier stress responses. They're just going to be an anxious dog that makes better decisions, okay? So here, with this part of the healing exercise, because this is a 2-part exercise, all I'm going to care about is teaching Maverick how the collar turns on, or how pressure turns on, and how it turns off, okay? And that he technically is in control of this, depending on what he decides to do. So typically, when we're walking with our dogs, we tend to walk them on a short leash to give us more control or leverage. And that short leash is most likely going to be tight or tense, which creates tension and frustration, and over time could potentially create negative behaviors like reactivity, okay? So a lot of times when people walk their puppies, especially on harnesses, they tend to walk them on a tight leash, and then the puppy's trying to pull towards everything, and it gets frustrated and starts to bark at things, and over time that frustration becomes agitation, and the agitation can become aggression because the puppy starts to relate negative tension to everything that it sees, okay? So here, when we are training the heel, I have Maverick on a slip leash here instead of his prong collar, so it's only remote collar and slip leash, is when I hold the leash, I want to have it hanging right there, that little J by Maverick's armpit, about right here to him, okay? This would be too long. He's melting here. Come here, bud. This would be too short, okay? We need Maverick to have slack in order to make mistakes, so just like that. Now, if you look at how I'm holding the leash here, it's what I call the trainer hold, is we take the loop of the leash over the left thumb. Come here, buddy. And then we take the excess of the leash over the pointer finger, and then we clasp down, okay? So here it should look like two rings with everything on the inside there, okay? So again, over the left thumb, take the excess over the pointer finger, clasp down, just like that. So the reason why we do this is it's a very secure hold. So if the dog were to randomly lunge, they're not gonna pull it out of your hand, okay? I've had clients, before training, do this where they'll wrap like this, and you can break fingers, because especially if a large dog, 120-ish pound dog, suddenly lunges and pulls, you have no escape from this. It's going to break fingers. I've had clients that hold the leash like this, and then the leash slips off of their hand, and the dog escapes them, or they get into a dog fight or whatever. So this is a nice secure hold. The other reason why we do this is if I need to take slack, if I pull on the inside, I take slack, and if I just go like this, I can give slack. So it's very efficient as well as that kind of little levy system, okay? So now, with the heel exercise, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be tapping Maverick as I'm walking when he gets away from me, okay? And the tapping is gonna stop once Maverick returns to where I need him to be, which is gonna be to the left side of me, okay? Now heel, the end product of heel is a package. Walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. Right now, I'm just worried about Maverick sitting with me, moving with me, okay? I'm not gonna care about the auto sits. That'll be in the next part of heel, okay? So here, whenever I say turn, you're gonna see me turn to the immediate right like this, moving away from Maverick. And I will be saying tap each time I press the button. So if I said tap, 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 that would be my rhythm. If I said tap, 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 that would then be my rhythm, okay? I may adjust the collar depending on how Maverick responds. If we get vocalization, vocalization does not always mean physical discomfort. Vocalization can be one of three things. It can be physical discomfort, it can be surprise, and it can be frustration. Physical discomfort typically is every time you remote the dog, they'll vocalize, okay? So earlier in the working level video, when I was trying to find Maverick's working number, there was a couple times when he vocalized, but then I kept tapping, and then he didn't care anymore. Okay, so I could have been just surprised, but if it was vocalization, if it was physical discomfort, he would have vocalized every single time. Okay, and you'll notice this, like whether it's a calm environment, an exciting environment, he's playing with his friends, it's a hot day, it's a cold day, he's just always vocalizing. That's typically potentially the number's too high. Okay, there's very rare exceptions where the dogs will ignore everything but the number that makes them vocalize. In most cases, it's not like that. Surprise would be you're walking with Maverick for 30 minutes and then you tap him for the first time in those 30 minutes and he's caught off guard, so he'll vocalize. Frustration is you'll usually see the dog do something like putting the brakes on or resisting. They're not wanting to follow while you're tapping, and then they start vocalizing. That's frustration because the dog doesn't want to do, what you want them to do, so they're giving resistance, okay? So here, again, at that 40, is I have my slack here, and I'm gonna start moving just back and forth here with Maverick. And I'm not giving him any kind of command or any kind of cue here. And then when he passes, tap, 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 I'm gonna tap and then turn away from him. Tap, 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 good. And when I say good, it's because he's doing something that I'm looking for, which is to walk with me. Tap, tap, tap. He tried to walk to that front door there. Tap, tap, tap. Good. See if he pulls. So right here, tap, 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 tap. Good. So the moment Maverick, I see him targeting my left side and or moving to my left side, tap, tap, tap. I turn away and start tapping. Right there, tap, tap, tap. The moment he started to kind of look away, I turned away to catch him off guard because he's already doing well here. Tap, tap, tap. And this can be because we're in an enclosed environment. I'm going to bump this. I'm going to go to 45 here. Tap, tap, tap. Good. There we go. Good. And you can see how he's kind of just looking at me here. He turns with me. Good. And you can see a lot of lip licking. The lip licking is a stress response because he's wondering if he's going to be corrected. Tap, 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 tap. Good. So you see he's looking at me. Tail wagging doesn't mean happy. Tail wagging means thinking. Tap, tap, tap. Because he's trying to figure out why is this sensation happening? How is it turning off? Tap, tap, tap. There we go. Good. Okay. So here, I want the remote to do all the work for me. People tend to use the leash to try to control the dog. Good. Whereas I use the leash really just to limit the dog's range of motion so that the remote can do all the work for me here. Good. You see this time how he turned with me. Whereas before there would be a gap when we would turn away. Tap, tap, tap. He started going to my right side. Good. 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 Tap, tap. Good. Nice. So you can see here, he heard something. Started looking kind of this way. I tapped and it just kind of pulled him towards my left side here. That's what I'm wanting Maverick to learn. I'm wanting him to learn that when he feels this sensation, that targeting the left side is what he wants to do. Okay? Again, this is no words. The only thing I'm saying is good. And that's really for you to mark that what he did was what I was looking for. Okay? And of course, everything else, obviously for you. So a lot of times, you know, especially when I get clients trained by other trainers, they'll have like all these cues like heel, stop, slow, left, right, like, you know, to tell the dog what they're doing. And when you see in the second part of heel, all of this stuff is default and intuitive to the dog when you understand how they learn, okay? So dogs are physical creatures. They nip and bite each other. This tool, I like to again refer to as a bite on the button, allows me to nip and bite Maverick instantaneously the moment he does something I don't want him to, okay? So in this case, and it wasn't too obvious because most dogs would get ahead like this. So when I'm turning and tapping, it's a lot more obvious as to why I'm doing it. Whereas right now, since he was kind of already attentive to me, I had to kind of force the mistake by any time he'd look away, turning and tapping, and then there was times where he'd get away from me just about a few inches. So it's harder to see on the camera at a distance than it is for me, because as I'm standing next to him, I can see where he's getting ahead of me here. So for Maverick, he should be parallel to us, his right shoulder to our left leg. So technically, if I'm back here or he's up here, like this would be considered passing, okay? And that's where we would turn away. So we do not give the dog even an inch in terms of a space to get ahead of us. We would correct that, okay? The tighter you are with that expectation, the better his obedience is gonna be. People tend to go with, oh, this is so much better than what it used to be because the dog's not pulling. So the dog might be ahead of the owner, like a half a body length ahead of them, and they go, this is fine because he's not pulling. And I go, no, no, no. It has to be his right shoulder parallel to your left leg, because in time, that half a body length ahead of you is going to become a full body length ahead of you, is going to go back to pulling again. Heel is not gray area. Heel is very black and white. Dog's right shoulder parallel to your left leg. Heel means walk with me, stay with me, sit when I stop. Right now, I'm not caring about that with Maverick because we've not covered that yet. All I'm caring about is that he understands that this thing is telling him to target my left side. So if Maverick is behind me and I tap him, I expect it to bring him forward, okay? Whenever Maverick passes, I'm turning and tapping to tell him, hey buddy, you're going the wrong way. So when he turns around, he's like, oh, Jesse's going that way. He catches up and disappears, okay? So then he starts to tie together, hey, every time I get, I lose focus of Jesse, that collar turns on, but the moment I'm right next to him, the collar turns off, right? I'm wanting him to learn that pattern. So I'm currently at 45. He's taking to it really well. And I know, because you had sent the email about, the issue is when the environment is distracting, right? Which is same thing for everybody. It doesn't matter with remote collar, because remote collar will override the environment because we have 127 respective levels of variance here, okay? So I'm at 45, I'm a third of the power. So if I go outside with Maverick, my assumption would be I'm gonna be at least 45, probably higher, because there's more distractions, okay? So once you figure that out, it becomes very intuitive. You're like, oh, we're in the neighborhood, I only need 45. Oh, we're walking at the park, we're going to the park, I need, 75, whatever, okay? So we do not determine the number, Maverick does. If Maverick is perfect at 15, then I use 15. If he's perfect at 115, then I use 115. How I feel about it doesn't matter. It's whether or not the dog is giving me what I'm looking for, okay? And I don't do this to be mean. I do this because if I'm too low in the collar, the dog will blow it off and not take it serious, and I'm just prolonging the process and creating unreliable obedience, okay? So here, he's getting distracted. So again, we're at 45, I'm gonna move away, tap, 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 good. And you can see the taps there, pulled him, tap, 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 away, tap, and got his attention. Here he's starting to pass, turn, tap, 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 turn, tap, 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 tap. Good, we're gonna go to 50. Tap, tap, good. So right there, right on time, tap, perfect example of needing to increase either frequency of the taps or the level of pressure, tap, tap, to override the situation. And you can see at the 45, there was I was like tap, 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 and Maverick kind of still took his sweet time, so he's very resilient, he's very physically tough. As sweet as he may be, and as cuddly as he may be, I'm sure at home, tap, tap, it doesn't mean the dog cannot be physically tough, okay? This is why I do remote collar, because it doesn't rely on physical strength. We get clients that have their dogs on prong collars, and the prong collar doesn't impact the dog completely just ignores it. Tap, 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 bring them to the left side, good. The dog ignores it. Even like if the owner gives like the harshest corrections they can give and pop them on the prong, dog just like doesn't care, because you want to think that one, the prong collar isn't the sharpest teeth, because teeth puncture and penetrate and scratch. And it's not meant to do that, right? Because we don't want to cause physical harm to the dog. But dogs nip and bite each other. This is their primary form of communication. So they're genetically already wired to be tough and to tolerate pain and discomfort. So here with the remote collar, with that 127 levels of variance, it allows me to override the dog's resiliency to the collar as long as the owner is willing to do so. So here, when I mentioned earlier, I forgot the dog's name, but I know it was a golden retriever. His number was 127, and I told the owner, like, because he would still forage, like he could care less. The owner was doing all the homework. We were going on walks. So like, wow, your dog is just like, this is crazy. And I suggested, just add another collar and have 2 points of output. But the owner was like, nah, I'm fine. I'll just stick with the one. But had he done that, we would have been able to create the perfect heel and all that stuff. The owner just didn't want to. So in this case, with Maverick, I had to bump it to 50. Again, I'm incrementally going up. I'm not going 45 to 100. I'm taking my time, okay, because we're in the conditioning process. So it's the same thing for the owners. You're kind of repeating the same process, and this is why we always want to find the working number first, like we did in the previous part that I recorded here. Because if I would be at 15, I'm trying to walk with Maverick, you're going to waste time trying to find that working number as you're training. So I always tell clients, find the working number first. It takes you 30 seconds to a minute. And this way you know, okay, if I'm at 45, I'm already that much closer to my working number. And your training exercises are going to be that much more beneficial and rewarding. Okay, but if I start at 15, I might not even get to 45. I might only get to 25. So that's really just a waste of training session. And this does happen with clients. So when you establish the working number first and then go on your walk, you're more likely to hit a higher range if needed for Maverick. Considering that he may potentially be higher up there with those distractions. Okay, so here, I don't care that Maverick is laying down, but you can already see like his energy being a bit more passive, a bit more chill. This is very common with remote collar training when done correctly. Is the dog starts to learn how to focus, how to block things out. Obviously, he still needs some more work with the distracting environment, but we can already see that pacing and like the an inability to settle that we saw in that working level video is starting to go away. Okay, so what happens is this starts to become a default. So now with Maverick, the next time I film with him or whatever, he's probably going to just lay down because he's just defaulting to a calm, passive state. Okay, so I'm going to do one more back and forth here, but again, giving that slack. And you can see he's kind of hanging behind me a little bit. This is not uncommon because he's starting to associate that every time he passes me, something happens here. So he's trying to avoid that. So then dogs will lag in the beginning. Tap, tap, tap. So distracted by the train there. And 3 taps at 50 to get him to turn away. Okay, again, not caring about the lagging. And then here you can see how he watches me, so he turns with me, so we do nothing there. So I'm wanting Maverick to learn if he follows my lead, he can avoid the collar. Good. Good. Okay, now this will start to fix itself once he starts to understand what the expectation of heel is. He's just being cautious at the moment. Okay. Good. Now, if I did want to speed him up, I will tap, tap, tap with the light pull forward to bring him up. But I'm not going to worry about that right now, but just as FYI for you, especially when it's been weeks into training, the lagging, again, should just resolve itself on its own once he realizes what the expectation is, that walking next to my left leg is the answer to turning off the pressure. Good. Tip. Good. There we go. Very good. So here, pretty straightforward. Taking to the collar very well. Okay. When we get dogs that are anxious and stuff, we see a lot of shaking, we see salivating, things like that. Here, you can see he's attentive, looking at me, right? You even had that tail up. Tail up doesn't necessarily mean happy. In this case, for me, it means thinking, because there's something happening in life right now, and it's getting his attention. And he's going, okay, there's a pattern here. And the pattern is every time I focus on something else, get distracted or pass Jesse, it turns on, and then Jesse happens to be doing something different and walking the opposite way, and when I catch up to him, it disappears, right? So that's what I want the dog to learn, is the collar is telling him, pay attention to me. And when you pay attention to me, nothing happens, okay? And because I'm working at a number that's concerning, we're getting very quick progress. So most training is like super nice or accommodating, try not to stress out the dog too much and stuff like that, and that's not realistic. Here, I'm not trying to be mean to the dog, but I am trying to get them to immediately take what we're doing seriously, and we do that by having that working number. So he goes, I want that to turn off and stay off, so then I'm going to start avoiding these decisions or these behaviors in order to keep this from turning on again. Okay, again, just like another dog would bite him. So if he mounted the dog and that dog bit him, I don't want to say seriously, makes it sound like punctures, but you know, like a serious, like, hey, don't do that. He's going to take it seriously immediately because the dog was serious. So it's the same thing with my training. We started low. We started at 15. We slowly worked our way up, found the number that he respected. So it's low enough that he can think through it, but high enough that he respects it, right? That's how the application of this declines. The problem with most e-collar training is it's too low. Like I said, it's trying to be nice. And again, not trying to be mean, but I'm going to be assertive and I'm going to say, you're going to do this. So when I teach heel, on the same day, I could take the dog for a walk because I'm making it serious from the get-go. It's a simple command. Walk with me. Follow my lead. It's very simple, right? It's not complicated. Humans make it complicated because they try to do it too low. The dog's not taking it seriously, or if the dog even feels it at all. And now we got frustration because then it's not working. And then what ends up happening with low-level e-collar is that you go from super low to super high, super low to super high, super low to super high. You're constantly going up and down, okay? And I go in the middle. I go low enough that the dog can think through it, high enough that they respect it. And that's how we end up with more consistency and over time, the decline of application of the collar, okay? If you're using this and you feel like you're arguing with Maverick or it's not working, you're too low, okay? You're too low, or maybe you're doing something incorrectly, which is it's a possibility, but when owners usually come to me with like, oh, my dog's like not healing, whatever, it's almost always they're too low on the collar, okay? So Maverick doing really good with remote collar, with his introduction, ending at 50 for this part. His number, again, most likely going to be higher once we're outside, especially when we add in distractions. But for now, we're at 50 for this current environment. And we got the foundation down. And then next, we're going to work on the place command and then come back with heel part 2. Break. Good boy.